And the new government in Kiev is supported by the Tatars, who feel that they will get some support, but they are hated by the Russians, who feel that it can undermine their way of life. We've already seen violence here today outside the parliament in Simferopol, and there is much more possibility of violence in the days, weeks and months to come.
Daniel Sanford reported. Well, meanwhile, in the capital, Kiev, people have returned to the streets awaiting the lineup of their new pro-European leaders. They have the daunting task of stabilising the country, staving off its looming financial crisis, and finding the fugitive former President Viktor Yanukovych, who is now seeking solace in Russia. From Kiev, Duncan Crawford reports.
Most of the men in these pictures were shot, many of them killed by security forces who were loyal to the then President Viktor Yanukovych. He's on the run, accused of mass murder, but the authorities today took some action against those who called for freedom, disbanding Ukraine's much-hated specialist riot police, the Good.
Майдан оголошували області. We had one president who stepped down, but now people have died. Those responsible must be punished.
At the Parliament, attempts are continuing to form a new coalition government, but at the moment, it's men like this who control the streets around it. Convincing some to give up their newfound power may not be easy. This is Independence Square tonight. This will become the scene of a kind of political talent contest, with Ukraine's wannabe leaders appealing to the crowds for their approval ahead of the vote in Parliament tomorrow. Ousted President Yanukovych's extravagant mansion continues to be a source of anger. Its zoo and its sauna mocked for the levels of greed and corruption. The millions he spent on himself now documented on a website called Yanukovych Leaks. Meanwhile, there's still concern a Cold War-style conflict could break out between Russia and the West. Many in the international community are urging calm.
This is not a zero-sum game. It's not a West versus East. It should not be. It is not Russia or the United States or other choices. This is about people, Ukraine, and Ukrainians making their choice about their future.
What that future is remains uncertain. Eastern city of Kharkiv, pro-Russian demonstrators are in a standoff with those who support the demonstrations in Kiev. It shows just how hard it will be for whatever new unity government emerges to heal the divisions in the country. Duncan Crawford, BBC News, Kiev.
Well, a few moments ago we had that reporter from Daniel Sanford in Simferopol in Crimea about the increasing tension among the crowds there. We've just heard from our team on the ground that one person has died, has been crushed to death in the protest. We'll obviously watch out for any further developments on that. Well, let's go live now to Washington. James F. Collins was the US ambassador to the Russian Federation from 1997 to 2001, also an expert on the former Soviet Union and its successor states at the Carnegie Institute. And Ambassador, really grateful for you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I know part of what an ambassador does is representing US viewpoints to the Russians. You also interpret what is going on in Russia. I wonder what you'll be writing in your telegram this evening back to Washington about what you see unfolding from President Putin and his administration.
Well, I'd probably be making 2 points. One, that we need to watch what Russia does, not what a lot of different voices from Russia are saying. That means we have to listen to Mr. Putin, but there are lots of other voices calling for quite irresponsible activities. And the second would be that we need to find a way to engage Russia, to see it in Russia's interest that all of us bring Ukraine to make its own decisions and find a way through this very, very dangerous and divisive time.
You do see this as a particularly dangerous time?
I do. I think Ukraine at this point is at a critical moment. You've always had great divisions in that country. Partly it's east-west, partly it's just old versus new, partly it's wealth versus inequality versus the poor. At this time, though, we have obviously a charged atmosphere, and the question of how leadership is going to emerge to bring that country together is the question of the moment.
When you hear things like, I mean, you know, you say you've got to divorce the rhetoric from reality, but we've had, President Putin, you know, calling for his troops, snap readiness, as the phrase that we've heard used about his troops in central and western Russia. Is that helpful?
Well, I don't know that it's helpful at all, but it also is what it is. It is a call to show that Russia's troops are capable and ready. It does not, at the moment, suggest or even indicate that anyone has intervened. And I think any idea that Russia will intervene militarily is something that has to be totally discouraged. But I would also think they must themselves realize how dangerous that would be.
We've heard John Kerry saying that this mustn't be turned into a sort of Ukraine in the middle of a tug of war between East and West. But what you say is that that is inevitably what it is to some extent.
Well, I think one of the problems of the past 2.5 decades has been that that's what people wanted to portray. The reality is Ukrainians themselves have got to make their own decisions. They too often have been trying to play West against East or Russia against the United States and avoiding their own difficult decisions. That has to stop. Now today, I think the challenge really is that somehow Ukraine's authority has to find a way to protect all of its citizens. It has to find a way to bring all groups in Ukraine to a sense that Ukraine is their country. In that sense, I think the decision that was made early in this new government to do away with Russian as an official language, whatever the reasons, was a bad move.
I just wonder...
It simply exacerbated problems.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just wonder what leverage you think John Kerry has in this, or are we waiting on events from President Putin?
Well, leverage. Ukraine has two particular problems. One, it is politically in chaos right now, and it's trying to form some sort of government. I think the reality is neither Russia nor the United States nor the EU have a lot of leverage in this. This is fundamentally a question that is going to be decided by Ukrainians, and we have to keep our fingers crossed that they come to the right decisions. The second issue, though, is the economic mess Ukraine is in. And here, leverage really amounts to money. The question is, will Russia, will the United States, will the EU, will the IMF, whatever institutions it's going to be, are we going to find a way to bring Ukraine along such that they can pull themselves out of a catastrophic economic situation? Here, I think the first thing I would do is say to the leaders of Ukraine when the government's established, you tell us what you can do such that to change your system such that we can in fact support it. The idea that we're going to go in with a long list of requirements, I think, is just not reasonable.
All right. Ambassador, so grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed for being with us here on BBC World News. Really good to talk to you. Thank you. Some other news. The governor of Yobe State in northeastern Nigeria has criticised the country's armed forces for failing to respond to Monday night's gun attack on a boarding school. More than 50 students, men and teenagers, were killed when suspected Islamist militants stormed the school. Ibrahim Gaidan said that even 5 hours after the attack, there were still no security forces to contain the situation. And do stay with us. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with a BBC investigation into the murky world of the conflict gold trade.
Home to the tallest buildings, the richest people. Dubai is my city.
It's more of a taboo to talk about it, but much more acceptable to do it by keeping it private.
The violent history of Colombia has shaped this place. Bogotá is my city.
For me, Bogotá is a playground. It's a place where I can express freely.
A great port city on the Black Sea coast of Ukraine. Odessa is my city.
There were many hard times in this city, And to get through